Hello class, it's Mike once again coming to you for your final epic lecture in this YouTube channel, introducing you to Dreamweaver CS6 in my web course. If you're watching this and you're not in my class, that's also very okay. You just need to be aware that I do cater some of this to my students. A few notes for my viewers, students, and non-students alike, as I've had at the beginning of the last two videos in this three-part series. Quick review we're going to do today. We're not going to spend as much time going back over this stuff. So again, I want to remind you, I'm assuming if you're going through these tutorials with me that you've watched the previous tutorial. This group of three really caters to people that want to make a website but aren't even that comfortable on computers, right? So you have trouble saving files, stuff like that. I'm not telling you as my students that you guys aren't comfortable on computers, but I gotta say, after seeing some of the stuff I've seen after the first two lectures with where you're putting files, it doesn't even seem like you're listening to me. So that may have something to do with this other things you're doing on your laptop while I'm trying to get you to do the things I'm doing. But at the end of the day, I can't stress enough, all we're having trouble with is file management. Okay, so in my quick review today, before I cover these things really fast, because this is going to be the shortest one in this three-part series, when I open up Dreamweaver on students' machines and I see certain things like the top folder is not the main site folder. The main site folder then is here, and then there's the subfolders. They didn't follow my directions to how to define the site. When I open up the site folder and I see that they have no pages folder and no pages, you guys simply haven't just done the stuff we did in the second class. You need to actually do this work with the demo site in order to be able to do it on your own site. That's the whole idea. Okay, so no, I'm not collecting this, and I'm not asking for you to turn it in as a grade. But when you go to do your test, you're going to have to do the same exact stuff we've done in these three videos. So the issues I'm seeing, there's people haven't gone here and done check links site-wide to see if there's any broken links before they move their pages into the pages folder, which means there's tons of issues with links, and you can fix all that in here. If it's a link to a file that doesn't exist, it means you have a file name that was incorrect, and you can fix that over here. You do all this in Dreamweaver with files closed, and you're fine. You're in good shape. You're going to have to do this on the test, and you cannot ask me questions. So I can't stress enough, file management, file management, file management. Understand, pay attention, know what you're doing, where you're putting your files. That's how websites work. A Dreamweaver site is simply a connection to a folder full of files. Okay? That folder on my machine now looks like this at the end of part 2 in this three-part lecture series. And inside of pages, I've got my 5 subpages in addition to index. Okay, from this method that I'm using to teach this, you can see how once I start to go in and edit the pages and make some changes, you might not save everything off index anymore. You might have made some changes to about, and you're going to save changes from that, okay? So just my quick review here is not to go over all the things we've done thus far, which are quite a few steps at this point. This was our very first installation of this lecture, part 1. And here's all the things we covered. Part 2, went back and took a look at the Dreamweaver site again and then covered some more stuff. Okay, so now we're moving on to part 3. Okay, and with part 3, we don't have quite as many bullets to cover. So my goal is to keep this one under 30 minutes, where with the first two, they were both over an hour. And then you'll be getting, in 3.5 hours approximately of video, maybe almost 4, what I have done in 6 hours of class. And the reason it does take a bit longer in class, as my students have noticed, is because we have a lot of questions. We have people that just simply can't literally put a file in a folder and get it into the right place and follow those instructions. And it's not their fault. It's because this is what smartphone technology and tablet technology, this is what user-friendly programming has done to us when we need to go back to the basics with those grade 5 concepts we learned about keeping track of our files and folders and stuff, because that's how websites work. So you don't need to be a computer expert to be making a website with my courses. I've said that time and time again, and I'll keep saying it now. Multiple browsers. I want to remind you again, especially if you're in my class, you're done just having Internet Explorer. Okay, I brought it up every single week, 3 or 4 times. You're no longer only going to have Internet Explorer. If I come over and that's the only browser I see on your computer, I'm again going to wonder what is going on when I say this over and over. And it's easy and free to go and download browsers like Chrome, Safari, Firefox. There's lots of them out there, okay? So when you go to here and you have a file open like this, and let's collapse this tab group, you have this little preview button. I should see at least 2 in here, not just Internet Explorer, okay? And if you're on a Mac, you probably already have a couple, but I want to see more than Safari, okay? I want to see at least 2 because you want to test these things out. You're going to be trying different stuff, even just today, and you want to test it out in different browsers. I don't always do that in my videos, but you will definitely want to start doing that when you start working on your own site. And the process we've gone through to create this, which is the same process we're going to use for you to create a site as part of your Dreamweaver test, is the same process you're going to use when you go to start your final project and get a template. Some of you have already done this. So I urge you again to take some time and find a template on some of the sites we're going to cover in our first lecture after the Dreamweaver test that suits your needs. And take your time to go through the concept map you created. How do you want it laid out? Stuff like that. For right now, we got one more lecture to still get you comfortable in the Dreamweaver environment, so we're not pushing to get your project going yet. You should have an index page that looks like this. You should have a bunch of pages and pages that look like that. And when you go to check links site-wide, all your links should be working, which means this should be an empty white space, which is what you want to see. Okay, you can pause me now and go and check those things to make sure everything's tip-top. Okay, that should be another one of my notes here, actually. Pause me. A couple of my students were complaining, like, you're still going too fast in the videos. And I was like, you know you can pause those things, right? I just wanted to make sure. So when I say, let's do this, or I'm doing something and it looks like I'm making changes to the files in the site, you should be doing it too. So as soon as you see me do it, you pause the video, you do it. And in the process of this 3-part lecture series, you've made a website. And when you go back to do it yourself, if you followed along that carefully, it will definitely not take you 4+ hours. It'll take you about 20 minutes. That's how fast we can do this. Are you ready for the test in my class? You're almost there. There's only a few things left in this lecture that I'm going to show you that are even on the test. And you're pretty much with those first 2 lectures where you made the site, set it up as a Dreamweaver site, then you changed a little bit of CSS, made your navigation, put all the pages in the pages folder, and learning along the way how to make basic changes to each of your pages. You've learned almost everything I give you on the test. And it's worth 20% of your mark. You're probably shocked that that's the case, but it is. You want to go back and review those if you're not ready. If you're ready, you can go to the compressed version of the 3 videos that I'm going to post right after this one in my playlist, and you can watch that if you think you're ready, okay? And that will be pretty short. That'll be 20 to 30 minutes, and you will see me do everything you have to do on the test, okay? A couple other students said to me, am I really a web developer? And I talked about in class a few times, yeah, you know, you guys are part of a program, particularly in Ontario, Canada here, we have other courses as well. We have an AdWords course, we have a course in analytics, and you have an SEO course. My course is predominantly SEO, and we're going to get to that as soon as we're done with the Dreamweaver test. Then you know how to make a site. Now it's all about the content, right? Am I really a web developer? I was talking to some prof from Western, and he thought it was ridiculous the way you were teaching this course. Telling people as a professor to go and download an already built website and just plug in your own information. So I looked him right in the eye and said, do you really think that's the case when you're in marketing? You've already, in this particular student, she'd already been out in the real world, and she understood that marketing is not that job that people take because they couldn't figure out what they wanted to do in business. It involves very specific sets of skills, and they go across the board now, where a marketing professional is expected to be able to sell and negotiate and have charisma and go from door to door and do crazy things. Then they're also, at the end of the same day, expected to update a website and make a quick website for their client. And if you come out of a program and you have those skills, they're not going to care that you learn how to do it from pulling down a pre-designed template. They're just going to want you to do it because those guys are the same as you right now with all these bad file management skills. They don't get it. They don't care. They don't want to worry about it. Yes, you could call yourself a web developer after having gone through these 3 basic lectures. If you can go ahead and put together your own site the same way, check the links, get it online. So that's the next step. And that'll be my next video after we get through this final one and get through the test. Will be let's connect the server on one of the sites we already created and make sure we can get stuff online, and let's start really doing this, okay? So yeah, you guys are web developers. It doesn't matter that you didn't go through an entire degree program on coding and writing computer language. Because of the way computer software has been developed over the last 15 to 20 years, you don't have to do that, okay? But you have to pay attention to the details, and that's why I keep harping on file management. So today, okay, and this would be our third part in the 3-part series. We've reviewed what we've talked about. Now we're going to do some different stuff. So use of tables within CSS divs. What am I talking about here? Well, there might be a situation. I'm going to do this fairly quickly, okay? So I'm going to go to fishing maps. And let's say in fishing maps, I hadn't changed the content much yet. So I'm going to change this to Mike's Fishing Maps. And I'm going to change the title up here. I think I did do that already at the end of the last video. Yeah, I did do the title there. So I've changed that. I might change this up here to some map logo or something. I'm going to remove this div completely, okay? Because I don't want this on every page. I'm starting to get into my subpages now, and I'm realizing, well, I made this subpage. You know what? I just wish this had the same menu as every other page, but I don't need this big open space. And I'll show you an example of exactly how I set this up. And this is a successful website in terms of SEO. We've got like a good click-through rate. We've got good traffic, and the statistics all look really solid. And it was done with a free template. I changed the background, and we're going to do the colors and all the gradient stuff. We'll do that after the test. But I mean, that's where this site came from. And you can see the front site has a Java picture scroller, and the template actually came with that. And it scrolls through this. I don't need that. I don't need the blog tool. I don't need all this stuff on the main site. Okay, I just don't. So the reason this is an issue is because when you make a CSS layout, or you get a CSS layout that's pre-designed, you're pretty much stuck with this, or are you? So if I go here to this page, you can see this just has this white box. So I've changed the divs around, okay? So that I still have the same single CSS sheet, but the divs are a little bit different. And this one isn't even as strong of an example as, what was my buddy's thing? Okay, so here's one I put together for a friend. He's a fantastic artist and very, very simple website. That's what he wanted, but the keywords are great and it's got good optimization. I click on another page and I have this stuff over here off to the side, and I have this, and then, you know, what if he wanted just to have a single box across here and not have this stuff along the side, okay? So I ended up coming up with a reason to use that in every page except this one. And then I said, oh, you know what? I don't want that stuff cluttering up, you know, the nice presentation of his artwork. I don't want those extra divs along the side. It's just going to look stupid. And one of my students has already asked me, how do I do this? What do I do? I got to make an entire new CSS sheet and all this stuff. And I'm like, no, you really don't. And even that wouldn't be that hard. You could just make a separate CSS sheet, take the main div, make it wider, get rid of the other ones, and then just change the connection on the pages you want to use that sheet to the other one. I think it's very dangerous, though, when you start making separate sheets, because then you have to do twice as many changes every time you... Let's say you wanted to change the main body font in the entire site. If you only have one sheet, you only ever have to do it once, right? So here's how I would solve this problem. On all the other pages, I'm going to be okay with having the little side divs, and I'm going to add, you know, we can do advertising for other people's gear, fishing stores here, get some revenue. We can do, this is going to be a site that's basically a fishing blog, but I'm going to assume I'm going to generate enough traffic to start charging for advertising stuff. The maps page is just a customer service. So I don't want the divs that are over here. So click somewhere in the divs and use the tag selector just like I showed you last time. Keep selecting out until you can get rid of the divs. So div content was just the one that was inside of there. Something along the side is here. Div sidebar. There it is. Let's get rid of div sidebar entirely. Now I've removed it from the maps page. If I open up another page, it's still going to be on all the other pages, but I've removed it from the maps page, okay? Div sidebar is gone. Does that mean, after removing div sidebar, for example, that this thing has to stay? Well, no. Now I can make this thing as big as the entire site, which is still 740. And you can change all these things collectively across the site. I think 740 might be a little narrow now, given the size of most people's monitors. But I want to make this div 740. Now the issue is, if I make this div 740, which is div div main. Okay, it's div main. If I make div main 740, see how I kept going out until I knew, you know, div post is just the main post inside of it, but it only consumes half of it. Then there's another div post. Div main is the whole thing. See, I'm using the tag selector. Div main is 480. I'm going to change it to 740, but I'm not going to do that just yet, because if I change this div main to 740, then every div main changes to 740. So here's, and this is a very, again, one of those things professors criticize me for. They just make up new CSS and have a new div. No, don't. It's too much work. Here, watch. Go to the style sheet. Find div main. If you don't want to scroll through it, use Control F, right? Always these quick ways to do it. There's main, content, main. Here it is. Are there any other things associated with div main? There aren't, okay? So in div main, I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to copy this, okay? And right below it, I'm going to make a second one called div main underscore wide. And I'm going to make that, and I could do it right in here. Why wait to do it? Why not just change it right in here? I'm going to make that 740, okay? And I'm going to save changes to my style sheet. And I'm going to go back to maps. Nothing's happened, of course, right? I save changes to a style sheet, but nothing's going to happen unless in my HTML I'm pulling up. And once again, if you've gone through these three parts of my lecture series, I'm assuming you do know a bit of CSS, but I'm pulling up a div ID that's specified in the CSS to be a certain size, and you created the div ID in the CSS, and then it's not just going to appear automatically unless you pull it up. So, in fishing maps, I'm in div main. If I go here into code and simply change this to div main underscore wide, that's all I have to change. That very first where I'm pulling in the div, it's going to close as close div. I don't have to add the name or change it anywhere else. That becomes 740. And now I have more space to work with to paste my Google Maps. So I'm going to have Google Map icons, and that's where my table thing comes in. So now I'm going to show you another thing you can do if you decide you want to make a wide div. So, well, look, every other page is still the same, right? Because none of these are connected to div main. If I made this connected to div main wide. If I made this div ID to identify as div main wide and bring that CSS in, it would push this over, it'd get all messed up. Right now, this is meant to fit all this stuff in here together. I remove the side divs on maps so I could fit the big div main wide in there as one thing, okay? So maybe the picture I bring into maps then, I'm going to make a little bigger than the picture I bring into the other pages. But we'll get into stuff, that gets into a little more nonsense that you don't really have to deal with before the test. Once I show you how to do one picture, you can figure out how to do the rest. So the difference between this page and the other ones is I'm not going to have all this stuff. I'm going to get rid of all this, okay? I'm just going to have individual Google Map icons, and you can do the little Google Map plugin things, and I'm going to set them up to be spaced out here evenly inside of this div. So I want to get rid of all this stuff. I'm going to go over there. What's in here? Just to get rid of that one. That took care of that. What's the last thing in here? Div main wide. So I don't have any more divs left. This is probably, oh, there is div story. So now I've removed everything. Enter down. I'm going to put a table in here, which is an HTML layout tool, in order to keep all the different map icons I'm going to have laid out in the center of the page. Tables are really useful to throw into a site if you have like an open white space. Here, I'll show you an example on one of my sites. So on the Endless Surf site, okay, I have a lot of situations where I need to, like this is a good one too, and this is a terrible page. I can't believe I'm showing this in one of my videos for optimization, because we're setting up an online store. So for right now, our online store is like, look at all these brands we carry. I want these brands to all be sorted out and like columned and rowed and set up like this, but I don't want to have to bother to go through and do a bunch of extra CSS like to make it do this. So this is in the main CSS div, and what I did was I just inserted a table and just put that many rows and columns in it. And that's how all this stuff keeps and maintains its location within this div. So I'm pretty down on creating entire websites now with table layouts, because then you can't go and change the size of the table and the size of the spaces where the stuff goes in one sheet. You'd have to change it on every page. And I just don't like that, unless, of course, you used a Dreamweaver template, which I don't like for other reasons because it messes up SEO with the additional code it puts in there. So I don't use tables much to do an entire site. I never would, in fact. But I use tables a lot on individual pages and sites to put things where I want them to go. So table, you do have a menu here. Now we're in classic view, so we can start using our little quick buttons. You can go and do insert table from here, and you can do table and table objects and stuff. It's easy enough, since you have it right here, just to insert a table right from here. And I'm going to have 4 locations that are mapped right now. So I'm going to have a name for each location. When you click on them, then it goes to a special page I set up for the Google Maps. This is what I'm going to do eventually. So right now I'm just showing you guys the table as an example. So I'm going to do 2 by 2. So 2 by 2, okay? And it's going to build me a table. Right off the top, I don't want to see my my border and stuff like that. If I go to live view, you can see it's going to show me like table. That looks really chunky and amateurish. You guys want to get rid of that right away. So just go to the border, go to 0. Okay, you can space things out as you see fit. I don't want my text to be jammed right to the sides. So I'm going to do like 10 pixels of cell padding and maybe put 5 in spacing there. And then I'm going to set the width of the table to be a little wider. Don't use percentage, because then it'll change on its own based on the width of the monitor. If you fix the width, it will set it up, to be as wide as you tell it to be. So I don't want it to be 740. I'll do like 500. Okay, and then I want the table to be aligned in the center of the div, so I can go down here in the properties, align center. So none of this is changing my CSS. It's all relative to the table right here. And you remember in the web workshop when we made the table, remember? You're gonna have a CSS laid out site, but you may very well, on your contact page, for example, want to set up a little table to store your contact information. Look how awesomely easy that was. That's a real word for sure, awesomely. I just made a table, spaced it out, made it kind of nice using the properties inspector down here, just from clicking the table button in classic view and making it 2 by 2. Like, holy crap. And then in the table, I'm going to put some text. Okay, I'm going to have Mark's swimming hole. I don't know. I'm making up fishing places, right? Lori's Lake. Wildwood. That's actually a real one around here. And let's do the Goderich Pier. Sure, why not? I never catch anything there, but whatever. So these are each going to link to individual pages that'll set up. Like, you could do a list for this too, right? But I was thinking I'd do a little Google Map icon next to each one inside the table too. So I want to make sure it stays spaced out and nice, and it's always looking that same way. In fact, I want to center each of these inside the cell. So if I'm sitting in a cell, as soon as you get into the cell and make the cell active, you can center the information in the cell across horizontally, center. Okay. Well, I want to do them all. We'll just highlight the whole table, highlight them all, and then center horizontally. Okay, wait, I wasn't highlighting them. Yeah, I'm still having trouble with my stupid mouse here with it. Look at this nonsense. When I'm recording videos, there. Align center. Yeah, I think you do actually have to individually go to each one and set it up centered. If your mouse doesn't want to highlight it. Typically I can highlight through if I'm not recording at the same time, but my screen capture software creates, here, let's go to here. Let's troubleshoot this. If I highlight all my TRs, okay, to the close of the last TR, I should be able to align them all center. Did I not highlight them all? What am I doing here? Oh, it does. Isn't this cool how you can, where's the rest of the table? What's going on here? Oh, there they, okay. TR. Center. Interesting. Doesn't want to let me do those like that. Center. Ooh, right, center. Okay, you guys can figure it out how to now. And if your mouse wasn't doing funny junk, you could easily just highlight them all and go center. You can actually vertically align them. So if you make your table taller, you can have them sitting in the middle of the space. Okay, which is kind of nice. So piece of cake, guys. And then I want to make hyperlinks to them. And these were, these are planned to be links to internal pages. I'd probably call this like marks.html. And on the page, you'd have the full Google Map tool set up in there. Okay, but you keep them on your site, so you have more spaces and more spots where you can, start to SEO the crap out of everybody. So we'd set them up like that, and they'd be external links. So I'm not going to go much further than that. You'll start to see me do this a lot now as I one-off concepts. I'm not, and the stuff like I just did, I'll actually do in a separate video, not just a full lecture video as well. Once we get through the first 3 lecture videos and I do the test compressed video, you'll start to see a lot more pop up for CS6. So, I'm not going to keep going. I mean, you guys would know where to go from there. At this point, I'm assuming you have a pretty good grasp on what's happening here. So that was for fishing maps. You can save the changes because that way it'll help you remember what you did. And remember, you didn't just make the new div ID for main_wide. You then had to go and associate the HTML in fishing maps with that div ID to make it main wide, right? So we just added that in there. So that's a quick review there for what we just did. Let's go back to index and play around a little bit on here. So what else we got going on today? Because we don't have too much. We're not going to be too long compared to the other lectures. Tables in CSS, attaching CSS. Oh, this is a good one. Sometimes people move stuff in Windows completely, and I tell them not to do it, and they do it anyway. They start moving it around in Windows, and they're not updating links. So they've broken the link to their CSS. And then they just take it out. They just remove it completely. And they're like, I don't know what happened. It wasn't working, so I just removed it. If that happens, okay, and you have a file like this, and I showed you this last time, and without any pages in a site attached to any CSS, you can't really get to this little chain link. But as long as you still have other pages in there attached to the CSS, you don't ever have to type that back in there, okay? Because a lot of people are like, well, what if I remove the whole CSS link? I don't want to have to go back to the Web Workshop, Mike, or W3 Schools, which is the best place to go and find code quickly, just to put the code in manually. I'm in WYSIWYG now. I'm using Dreamweaver as my main CMS, okay? And I should be able to, without typing the code in, attach it. And you can, as long as there's other sheets attached, you'll have access to the link here. You browse, you go through your site, you find where the styles file is, you go, okay. You attach it. See the space you're in right now? I'm going to ask you on the Dreamweaver test to remove the link completely and reattach it this way, just to show me that you can do this, okay? Fixed. Done. Save changes, Control S, I'm done. And we did talk about this already, by the way. How far have we come so far? I mean, I know it's a couple 2-hour lectures and we could have done a lot faster, but so far we've made an entire site and built all the sub pages for it. Now all we're doing is editing content and making quick content changes. And that's the kind of stuff that'll be in your test that I'm not specifically going through here, but you'll be able to click on words and just change them, right? So we've come a long way. I mean, we've built an entire site. We just haven't put it online yet. And that's what I said at the introduction of this video, that is coming soon, okay? So inserting new images. Okay, let's go find a picture of a fish, all right? If you find something on Google, that doesn't automatically mean it's copyright free, okay? But because we're doing this for educational purposes and this will stay within the confines of my classroom, or you're doing it for yourself and it won't leave your computer and you're not going to say it's your picture. As long as you don't lie and say it's somebody else's, if you found it free for use, it should be not a big deal. Caught a big fish. I don't know. It's kind of a funny phrase. What? That is, come on. Wow. Okay. Let's use that one. I mean, it looks like an accurate photograph. It's a fun picture either way. You get files out of your camera. You get files on the web. You get picture files from somewhere. First thing you're going to do is save them into your web folder if you are in fact going to use them on your website, even if they're not optimized yet. When I say optimized, I mean that you are going to eventually have to change the size. I'm deliberately picking stuff that I know isn't that big, okay? Because for today, we're not going to do resizing and optimizing yet. That's perfect, 450 by 299, okay? So that'll fit right into our main div. It might be a little bit wide for the main div. I think it was 440 or something. Either way. Save image as. So I'm just right-clicking, command-clicking. Don't put this in your desktop. You're using this for your site. Okay? Whether it's coming out of your camera, wherever it's coming from, go in here, demo site. Now I'm putting this directly into images. If it was a full-size photo, hey, ASPX, what's going on there? Get out of there. Right-click. Google Images is good like that. You got to go to the page to actually get the proper, there, JPEG. Oh, that's just part of the file name. Okay, whatever. I'm going to go to the site folder, which mine is in sites. This is a little bit of file management here, and I'm going to go right to images. And I'm going right to images right off the top because I've picked an image that I know I'm not going to need to really resize much. I'm going to encourage you later after the test, figure out what size you want it to be in your page and then go make it that size, and that's the image you use. That way the browser is never loading up extra file size that doesn't need to be included. Because even if your image only loads up as 450 by whatever, if it's 3000 by 2700, that's how big the file actually is that the browser has to load. So we're going to call this fish sample image, okay? Big fish sample image. Let's go back and put that. You guys can call it what you want. No capital letters, no spaces, people, as always. And we're going to save it in images, okay? Once this saves in images, watch how long it takes in Dreamweaver to put an image into a page. Let's say that right here, more on fishing, I want to talk about this crazy story about where this guy caught a big fish. And I want to lead it off with the picture. Get rid of that text right there. Go to images. If you don't see your image yet, refresh your files panel. Take your image, click it with your mouse, drag it, hold it, drop it. In. Done. You just added an image to Dreamweaver. Now this is a crap photo, right? It's got poor resolution. It's can't be real. I don't know. Maybe it is. That's a that's a big fish, but fish get a lot bigger than that. So you would ideally pick a different photo with better resolution, but that's how easily it drags in. Now it drags in. If you drag and drop it, it drags in at the exact size the image is set at, and then you can manually resize in Dreamweaver here. I want it to be a little bit smaller. I'm going to bring it down to 350. And then I'm going to say just ballpark, would I reduce that by about 50 maybe to 270, 250. Okay. And then it looks okay. I mean, you really don't want to get in the habit of just ballparking that. And you also shouldn't need to go into a computer and calculate the width and height. So eventually, when we start really working with images, we're going to be doing some stuff in Photoshop where if you change one dimension, it calculates the other one in proportion. Okay, so if you change the width, it'll automatically change the height to be the exact reduction or well, I don't know why you'd increase reduction that you did to the other one. Okay, in terms of increasing file sizes, you pretty much always want to get a file that's as big as you're ever going to want to use it, because if the original version that you have is not bigger than what you're going to use, it's going to start to get pixelated and grainy and not look good. But this is all for another lecture. And while we're on that note, actually, might be a good time to download this program, because this semester I'm probably not going to have you download the 30-day trial of Photoshop. Just students get really annoyed when the trial expires, and then they all email me after the term and say, what else can I get? And then I always tell them to get Picasa, because it's free, and it's not quite as powerful as Photoshop, but it's pretty good. And you can do the kind of resizing and editing, and there's all kinds of different effects you can put on photos and graphics and stuff. You can do a lot of the same type of stuff in Picasa that you can do in Photoshop. So even though we're going to use Photoshop and do some graphic optimization with that in my class, I'm just telling you now, download Picasa. It's free and it's a great photo editing tool, okay? Because what I'm doing today to show you quick and dirty how to get images into Dreamweaver typically never works out that well. Typically, you need to get an image to be exactly the size you want to fit into the area where it's going and make it that size and then put it in. Because right now, even though this is 378 by 250, the file itself, if I click on the properties here, can I get the properties from Dreamweaver? Yeah, here, I'll just go to it in the web folder. So if I go to my web folder and I click on the properties, I'm thinking you probably get properties in a Mac if you did that, but the file itself, I can just click on it actually, 450 by 299. So when I load this in live view or I preview in a browser, it's having to load the file that could be as big as 450 by 299. I'm just telling it to only put it in the HTML in a size of 378 by 250. It's still, so what I'm saying to you guys is when we learn this after the test, you're going to learn the proper way is to, if this is how big you know you want it to be, you're going to go into a photo editing program and make it 378 by 250. See what I'm getting at? And you would save the large size file, the original large size file, in RAW when you did it that way. Going into the test, all you're going to need to do is find a picture of an appropriate size that's not too big and get it in there, okay? And it's going to be up to you. I mean, guys, I shouldn't have to teach you how to use Google Images. I mean, you should be able to go through and see that if you put your mouse over each one, it tells you how big it is, right? And if you go to advanced search right here, advanced search, you can actually tell it to stay here. Look, image size. So you could say medium, or you could say small. I don't know, larger than. Can you do smaller than? Yeah, they usually will load the smaller ones first, so your choices are larger than. But you could stick it to medium or go any size and just pick the small ones. All right, but you don't want to get something too big. Come on, that's awesome. You don't want to get something too big, right? Oh, that's cool. I don't know if that's actually real, but some of these are funny pictures. Look at this. Huh. Craziness. If kois get that big on this. Okay, I'm getting off topic, guys. And this is what happens when you're making a website, right? You get into the content, you look at what other people are doing, you get some cool stuff in your site to talk about and engage the user with. Now, this would just be a blog-based site, but if you had like a pet grooming service site or something like that, you'd want people talking about it on the front. And all the SEO stuff we're going to get into later on. So for right now, we dragged the picture in. Let's get out of live view. What if we wanted to change this picture? And you know how when we open up every page, it's on there? What if we wanted to do something else? Like we were in a hurry and we just wanted to get this picture changed and want to get it done. Okay, we drag this picture into index. Where'd it go? And it's a new one and it looks good. So we can go, let's go File, Save All, and Close All. Because you actually don't need to have your files open to do what I'm about to do. You don't even need to have Dreamweaver open. Let's close Dreamweaver. Check this out. Go back to Google Images. Let's find a picture of a lake or something. Let's search fishing lake. I don't know. Ooh, this is cool. So maybe we'd have a banner more like that, which would be more appropriate for a fishing site, right? And I'm probably going to have a different graphic on every page. But for right now, I just don't want those buildings there because I'm trying to show this to my client and I want them to see that I'm coming along and I got some ideas. That's kind of a cool looking picture. And eventually I was going to change those red, the red tones in the template to something more like blue or green. So I grabbed the picture. Okay, I forgot to look what size it was already. So go back. It's 339 by 255. Go take a look at the picture that's in your images folder, which I already have open in Windows. 472 by 180. Now, it's not likely that you're going to find a file by that size. What you would do if you were optimizing this properly is you'd find a picture that you really liked, that you knew at least a skinny part of it could be cut out and would still look really good. Okay, because you don't want to squash pictures too much and mess with the resolution. What we're going to do just to make this fast and dirty, just to show you how easy this is. And if I could find a picture the same exact size in a perfect world, that'd be great. But we're not going to. And you'll learn how to resize it later. So click on this one. Right click here. And then get onto the page itself and see if you can take it right from there. Save image as, say fish lake. And we're going to put it right into images because we're not dealing with big full-size raw files yet that we're resizing. And then we're going to go look in our images folder and see what we got in there, okay? So now we got this thing. Oh, I saved the web page in there. That happens sometimes with save image as. I went to save link as by accident. So I'm going to put it in there, and then I'm going to think about it, right? I'm going to go here and I'm going to go, wait a minute. I know how HTML works, and I know that right now this is called IMG6. With a small I, and it shows up in every one of my pages. Maybe if I just named this IMG6, it would replace every instance of that. And I could have even saved myself even more time, and when I saved it down, just put my mouse right on that and saved it as the same exact name. That way you don't have to retype the file name in, which is what I was going to do here. I was going to retype it in and call it image6. Why don't we do it that way instead? So I'm thinking, God, you know what? For right now, I'm in a hurry. It's close enough to the size. I'm going to go save image as, and I'm going to click on the file that's in all those pages and save this file as image6 instead. Now, at the end of the day, I prefer that I see some keywords in images, so you might need to fix some image file paths, and it's really not that hard to do that, guys. I'll show you when we open Dreamweaver back up. Where am I going? It's in my Start menu. Open Dreamweaver up. Actually, you don't even need to open Dreamweaver up. We could have just opened it up in a browser. Okay, open up index. Oh, look at that. Would you look at that? So the picture's already in there, because usually if you don't have human subjects, it's not that big of a deal if you squash the picture. And it is getting squashed a bit. I'll show you in a second. Every page we go to, it's on there, even in maps, because these are all HTML file paths to pull up that picture. So let's go back into Dreamweaver now and take a look. So let's start with index. If we click on the picture in index, okay, you'll see down here, this is the image source. So the image code we learned in the web workshop is already completed for us. If we didn't have it already complete, we'd get it automatically by dragging in the image, clicking and dragging it in. Or you just insert image, you can go insert. There's a bunch of different ways to do it, guys. Once you start doing stuff like this, it can't get much easier. And you can see it forced it to the size that it was already in, because we just changed the file name of the one we saved to the file name that was in there. So it made it 472 by 180. The other one that was in there was 472 by 180. If we go back to our images folder, we can see that it's actually 339 by 225. So it's actually stretching it and squashing it. But it's just to show you that you can just, how quickly and easily you can start to change templates around if you need to show a client something really fast without really having to do that much work. Okay? So now we've covered, wow, we're moving along here. Inserting new images, replacing current images with either version of the image, and this is per page, okay? And you don't want to change these up for each page. With either version of the image, if you sit on it, you'll see there's a spot for Alt. That's where keywords would go that we want to put in to improve our search engine optimization. So we would talk about Mike's fishing site is this and that, and you put a few phrases in there, not too many, and you pump up the site. We will get into more SEO techniques later on. Okay, for the test, you just got to be able to build the site. Then we're going to optimize it. That's the whole second half of the semester. So that's where you put the alternative keywords. You just click on the picture and the alt box just pops up right there. Remember in the web workshop, we had to deal with that because in the code, we'd have to remember to put alt, and then inside the alt, we put the quotes. There's another place you can put keywords that I haven't really talked about much, and it was automatically included in this template, which means they're thinking about SEO. We didn't put anything in it yet, but they included the instructions to put in title words, which is a place to put in SEO words when you're changing things around in a template, okay? And title words would go into the hyperlink. If you set on one of these hyperlinks, title, another place for keywords. Okay, so these are really quick things I just wanted to show you today that I'm not going to be too picky about on the site. If I say I want a title in all the links, or I tell you I want titles in the links, just put a title in that's generic and something related to the content that's on the site for your test. Okay, when you go to do it for your own site that you're going to launch, you're going to want to make it a little more related to the keywords that are associated with the content that you're trying to market on your site, right? So now we've gone all the way through here, and we already talked about that stuff while we were doing images, and we even talked about Picasa. Okay, so one last quick thing I'm going to show you that's not really on the list, but part of what we've been doing the last couple lectures, and this is the final part in the 3-part lecture, is, what did we change around here? We did some stuff, okay? Up here where the hyperlinks are, we created that whole link menu, we put a picture in, we've edited different divs, we've created that wide div. Remember the wide div? Where did it go? Right here. Okay. So we've come a long way with this. We could really start to change this around. And the only thing I'm not showing you until after the test is how to go in and truly optimize a template's graphics by changing them around to suit your content a bit better. So you're not stuck with this red thing. You're not stuck with this gradient. You can change all that without much of an issue. You just have to have a fairly moderately good photo editing program, Picasa being one that's free that you can get, and Photoshop being the one that I'm going to use in my class, which you can also get for free for 30 days. Okay, so the other thing I was going to throw in here at the end, okay, has to do with my cloning method a little more. We're gonna jump back in there, and like we clone the entire site, let's say you wanted to start making the pages, the individual pages for each maps, and you actually wanted to make this one for Mark's swimming hole, which is currently linked to marks.html. Okay, and as I've mentioned, I would prefer to see keywords in any titles like this. I prefer to see keywords rather than image 6, but that wouldn't be that hard to do. You just put the keywords in, and you just couldn't use the same exact image path. It's easy to fix this stuff. Let's just say you're happy with the way this page is set up, and this is how you're going to use your map pages is you're going to use one big div. So now, instead of cloning off index, you clone off this. You know all the links are working. So you just clone off this and call it Mark's location, okay? And you hit save. And then you go check. Now close all your files. Save all, close all. Save all, close all. Okay, and then whenever you start adding stuff, always check links site-wide. Ah, geez, I called it marks.html, the link, and I called the file Mark's location. So you fix those. You don't have to save anything because it was done and the files were there closed. So another way to piggyback on the skills you already learned in terms of cloning, because you don't necessarily want that to look like the index. You might want to use the wide div. Okay, and then let's collapse that tab group. And then in here you can delete this picture. Okay, and you can get some of that stuff out of there. Let's say you wanted to leave the picture, but you wanted to center it, okay? Okay, so let's say we wanted to center this thing like we're talking about. Now this is going to involve us building a class. But the class may not work quite as simply as it did in the web workshop if you don't do it the right way. So a class is good to override the CSS of other stuff. And it's not necessarily an inline style, but you have some image formatting, which is where that red border is coming from. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to click on that. If you go to styles, you can see right now it's saying that every image is going to have a border of red. But I don't want every image to be aligned in the center. I just don't. I only want this one to be aligned in the center. So I can't just add that to the image CSS to get that to center. And that should work, but that's not how I want to do it, because then every single image in my site, unless I specify otherwise with other code, will be centered. Right? So this goes back to the hierarchy we learned about, and we've reviewed it in almost every video now. If we go here to the source code, you'll see that we're inside of, where are we? The welcome div, but there's also a class added in there, post. Okay, so if I sit on the image, okay, so I'm on the image, you can see this has a class, image post, which is in welcome post, so image post. So even though I can't find in the CSS anywhere, if I just search for post, there is no image post. It's simply picking up post because it's part of welcome. And this is where things get a little complicated, right? So somewhere in here, it's specifying there's a line height and there's a font size. There's not a whole lot on post, but whatever it has, that's going to override if we try and do a class because it's already on there. Okay, so if we go to current, what do we have in here? Okay, this is what div post is getting. So see it right there, align left. Okay, so text align is set to be aligned left, set up the way the image currently is. So there's a couple different things you can do. A class is the better way to do it, because a class then you can use again when you want to center an image. The thing is, you'll have to remember that any image you put inside, let's go to the source code, inside of the welcome post div will automatically get this. So first thing you can do is get rid of that. See how it picked that up automatically? Now that doesn't mean it's going to center. It's still defaulting to left align. So then, in Dreamweaver, you can actually go into the format menu and align from here, even though you can't get to that when you're just sitting on an image here, because you can't pull up the CSS or the HTML here in the properties inspector. You can still get back into it from here. And you can go center. Okay, what's the hold up here? And it should center, but it didn't. What the heck is going on here? Let's go and see what it did. Well, it P aligned center, and then it closed P. Okay, so it's in a paragraph break, so try to center the P. The P in general is probably messing it up. So get rid of the P and then try and center it. Okay, so this is getting tricky. And this is what happens with CSS when you get it from something. So here we can go modify, format, sorry, not modify, align, center. That time it works. So the P was overridden by the CSS and the fact that you tried to center it there. And that's tricky, because you would think being in line, that should work. But because nothing in welcome post is allowed to be anything but left center, it couldn't override it. Okay, so what you did then was you div aligned centered the photo, and then it centered. So when you're doing this stuff in Dreamweaver, you're going to run into a lot of little stuff like this when you download a template. You're going to try and just make something go left or right or center. It's not going to work. It's because the CSS is telling it not to. So it's in there somewhere, and the easiest way to get it to work is to keep getting the CSS off it until it works. So that's what I just did with the paragraph. I got rid of it. I got rid of the class post, and then I was able to center it. Alternatively, okay, let's undo that. So alternatively, you could make a class to make it go in the center. And as long as you don't have that other class post still in there, you can only do one class at a time. That should center it, and then you can use it anytime you want on other pages, and you don't have to worry about getting rid of tags and stuff like that. So let's give that a shot. Okay, so doing a class will prove to be a little trickier than the type of class we did in the web workshop. Okay, you can make a class without having to go in and type it out as expected. So if I go in here and I hit the new CSS rule button, so this is a brand new thing for us here. We haven't tried this yet. I want to try and make something that will make this go in the center that I can apply just to this and other pictures that I want to go in the center. But, you know, I don't want to have it affect the other CSS. Okay, so you go in here and you go class that can apply to any HTML element. I'm going to name it image center. Okay. Okay, and it's going to go into the sheet. We don't have to embed it because then we can't use it again, right? So I'm going to put it in the style sheet. I'm going to click OK, and then it's immediately going to open this up. And if I want to center text, that's going to be in block. Okay, I know we haven't gone into these categories a whole lot yet. And under block, I'm going to text align center. I'm going to hit apply. I'm going to click OK. I know I was going kind of fast there. That's why you have the pause button and rewind. If you go to the style sheet and go down to the bottom, it's now thrown this into the bottom of the style sheet. That wasn't there a minute ago. Cool. Okay, so let's go back to the source code. We can close this up. Yeah, save changes. Let's go to design view, and sitting on the image, let's change the class. See how it still says post even though we took it out? It still says it. Let's change it to image center. Nothing happens. Now here's where a class makes things really hard on you, because what's going on is you have the class in with the initial div. So even though we took class out of here and put this new class in, even if we keep class post out of there altogether, we will never be able to really center it, okay, unless we create a new div align around it, or we do what's called a span class, okay? So this is the way it was, all right, before we took the paragraph break off it. And I took the paragraph break off it so we wouldn't have any trouble aligning it with a class, because once we took the paragraph break off, you could see that we were able to align it right up here. But that's not what we're doing now. We want to try and align it not with a div align, but with a class, and we should be able to do it. It just makes it a little bit more tricky when it's preceded by another class and then it's still in that class where you're trying to align it for the center, because this is align left, okay? This is tricky CSS. So here, we click on this, you can see this is div class post. No matter how many times I change it to div class image center, it's not going to align it in the center unless I do it another way, okay? We use a span class. So let's change it to image center, and then let's go to the code. And I know how to type this in code because it's honestly fast. Some things Dreamweaver is just not that fast at. Span class is pretty simple. You type in span class. It's span means you're kind of creating a special area where you're saying, you know what, this is inline text and it's going to stay this way until I close it. So span class equals, and then you put image center in here, okay, and then you close the chevron. Image center is also in here, and that's totally fine. And then after the image code, you close the span. So what this did was, how do I say this? What's the right way? It's protecting this now from the formatting that it was getting from this class. And it being inside of the span class where it opens and closes means that when I go to design view, it's in the center. So it does, there are things that we learn in the web workshop where, you know, a class isn't automatically going to work if it's inside another class. Things do get tricky with CSS when it compounds on top of itself. So you have to be aware of that. So that was a workaround for getting that class to work. The class that I ask you to make on the test is an even simpler one that just simply will be applied to text. So you would do it that same way. You would go and add a new class. You could apply it to any HTML element. You can name it whatever I tell you to name it. And then when you, so whatever, no name. When you go in here, you pick the format settings that I tell you to pick. Okay, and then the very last thing I wanted to show you today, which I promised I would show you in the last part 2 of this 3-part series, and I didn't, was all this CSS editing we've been doing. And let's go back, yes, save changes. Okay, let's go back to the index page where we initially did this stuff. So when we changed the menu, remember, we used the tag selector. We tried the A. They're 100 wide. Link active. Ooh, link active. We got to do that too. I'm glad I just saw that. We got to do that in this video so it's done. Okay. Not every template comes with that, but I'll show you guys how to deal with that. So div menu was 600 wide, and it was 500 wide. We changed it to 600. We did that by just using the CSS panel here, double clicking. If you want to save yourself even more time and you have the room, you gotta adjust some of these things so you get the classic workspace view to work for you. If you have the properties and menu that can be adjusted like on the fly without having to go into the main dialog box, you can actually just click here and adjust it right here and hit enter. See, I just added another 100, which bumps it down the line. I want to go back to 600. I hit enter. See, so that was another quick way of making CSS adjustments without having to keep going into the main dialog box here. It's really a preference thing, whatever works best for you. Okay, and then the final thing that I did need to show you, and this will need to be fixed on all of our pages in addition to this page we made here that isn't part of our main nav. So let's start with that one, okay? Let's go to Mark's location, and you will have pages that aren't part of the main nav. And if you go to code view down to the menu, you'll see that there's a class on the link. Okay, so if we go into our CSS and we go to the menu links, where is it, menu? Okay, so here's menu link, menu hover, 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 active. Okay, here's a class. So if the menu is hovering or it's in menu, whatever it is, you're going to make it be red if that's the page that's actually on. Okay, so this is your active class. So it's already set up for you. You just don't necessarily want it on the pages when you're not on that page. So it's the name of a class that you just apply to the page that you're on if it's in the main menu. So you don't actually have to adjust the CSS at all. If we go back to the source code, this is Mark's location. In our main menu, you don't see Mark's location anywhere. It's a sub page, so it's off the main menu, which means you're not going to tell the people that are at the top of the page, and we didn't do this at the bottom, it's only at the top, that they're on the home page. This is red. That's what index does. Here, in fact, they're not on any of those main pages. You just remove the class. Okay, so that was added in just like we originally learned how classes were. You didn't have to do a span class or anything. It's added in. So when I go back to design view, it's no longer red. None of these are red because you're not on any of the main nav menus. You're on the sub page there, Mark's location. So you can save changes there. Index, yes, save changes to style because I had done something before. Oh no, it's just the back and forth of that 700-800 thing, 600-700. Index has it on there and it's on for home, and that's fine because that's index. So you can close that one, that's good. Open up these sub pages. You can highlight them all at once and open them all at once. I don't know if I've shown you that yet either, guys. And click on each of the menus, and we're going to fix this. This is Mark's Fishing About. So this is not an active class for home, so cut that. Don't just delete it, cut it. Go to About, hit a space, and paste it in there. See how important it was to learn class code? Because now you know how that class works and how simple it was to change. See that? It's that one little thing we didn't do to the menu last time. You went in now, and you changed that so that you sorted out that this was, this was the active page. I don't know why I'm having trouble explaining this. You guys get this, right? Each page you're on, this highlights the page you're on so you know which one you're on. And this is a really good way to test your navigation when you're first making your page. I won't make you do this on the test. I don't think we have an active class link, but that's how you do it. You save your changes, close it up, just do one at a time. Okay, this is Mark's Fishing Contact. Mark's Fishing Maps. Okay, Mark's Fishing Maps. That's the one with the wide div. I should have known that. So go and take the active class out of there. Okay, just cut it. And then go and put it into the Maps one. So add a space. Go back, check it out. Yep, looks good. Maps is red. That's what we want to be red when we're on Maps. This is Locations. So click into the menu, go to Code View, just delete it. And you know, this is probably not the easiest way to do this. I think this is the best way to do it without making a mistake is this. Because you have to turn it off the one and then on the other. This one, you're really doing it both at the same time. So there, it's on location. So what I mean by that, and I'll show you on the second to last one here. Okay, so what I mean by that, we're on fishing gear here. I think this is the more fail-safe way to do it, to cut it from there and put it in the link you want it to be active. But you can do it using the tag inspector, right? So the link active, if you look at it, it's on the line class. It's a line class. It's not actually a link class. So if you're sitting here, you couldn't just turn it off by going like none. You'd have to make sure you were on link active. And then you can either go to none, or you could have just, here, watch if I undo this. You could just delete it. From the, you can delete it right from the property inspector. So I've removed it from that link, and then, so this is the WYSIWYG way to do it. And then this is gear, so I click back onto gear, And again, I can't just do it on A. I got to go to line. So go to line class, and then you can pick active and put it on. So I think it's actually easier to do it the way and then save that one and close it. So the last one, I think it's actually easier. I'll do it the other way again, just to take the line class for active off there, go to contact and put it on that one. All right, so a couple different ways to do it, and a little bit more review of classes. So making that class the way it was set up, you could see that I just simply change it around. Now contact is the class. So on the test, you have to make some specific text look a certain way, and it's going to be based on a class, and the class doesn't have to be related to any specific div. You literally, this is what you do on the test. You go class that can apply to any HTML element, call it test CSS or whatever it is, click OK, pick my stuff. Let's say it's Comic Sans. I think that's actually what I ask you to do, so I'm really revealing a lot here. 16 or something like that. There might be a color, and you change the stuff. I don't even make you go past the first category. I only do it in the type category. And you click OK. And then if you go down here and highlight this text, you should see that even without saving the CSS file yet, you should see that class available in Story right there, test CSS, see? And it'll just make it like that, okay? Notice it picks up the color from the other CSS because you didn't specify the color when you did that. You may have to on the test. So very simple process. And then the way I check it is it automatically adds to the end whenever you do additional classes like this. We just did the image center one and now the test CSS. So I'll go and look to see if it's down there at the end. Please don't move it on the test and put it somewhere else, because that's where I'm looking for it. So you either did it or not, and if it's not there, I'm not giving you credit. So a little bit of extra CSS there that I wasn't really planning on, and I did go back into the list here and add that to the list of stuff we covered in this final part of the 3-part lecture, introducing you to Dreamweaver, bringing in a pre-designed website and starting to change it around and making it work for what you want to do with your website. So ideally, at this point, you can go and pick up any template and start to do all the same stuff we did through these first 3 lectures to your own and start to work on your final project. Or if you're coming in from, not from my class, you can do the same thing for a personal website, business, marketing, small business, whatever you're doing. Okay, and that's the method that I use to teach my students to get a website out into the real world. Don't feel like you have to learn code and do it from scratch. And from this point forward in this playlist, you'll get more videos that just start. They'll probably still start with a little PowerPoint file with a logo explaining what's going to go on, but that'll be it. You won't have a big list of stuff, okay? These were the only 3 that were really like that. And of course, my web workshop videos that fully demonstrate each of the 4 modules in the web workshop, which is something you probably would have wanted to do before you got into this 3-part lecture introducing you to Dreamweaver. So thanks for watching, and enjoy the rest of my videos, which should be a lot shorter. And don't forget, I'm going to make that compressed video of all 3 parts and post that after them, and that'll be really good for you guys in my class as a test review video. Okay, so be watching for that in my in the main playlist there, the intro playlist for web design made easy with Mike Sloan right there. Talk to you later.